everything's manufactured, right? No matter everything physical around you was manufactured somewhere by something. And if you look at it today, I mean, who are two of the big heroes in the tech world? And it's you got Elon Musk, right? Steve Jobs. They were manufacturers. Okay,
Manufacturers.
that's what they do. Manufacturing. SpaceX is a manufacturing company, right? Tesla, manufacturing company. Okay, Apple, manufacturing company. That's what these things are.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Manufacturing Muscle Podcast. Today, I have on a very special guest, Elisha Tropper. I'm super excited to have you on and hear about all the great things that you are doing at your company. So, I'm going to turn it over to you, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in manufacturing?
Okay. My name is Elisha Tropper. I am the founder and CEO of Cambridge Security Seals. We are a New York-based manufacturer and global supplier of tamper-evident seals. We sell our products to over 30 industries, more, including transportation and logistics, food and beverage, pharmaceutical, fire safety, healthcare, airlines, oil and gas, banking, agriculture, government, many, many more. Basically, anyone who's moving anything from one place to another. Um, I got my start. I was an English major in college at Yeshiva University and got an MBA from Columbia. Um, I didn't start off in manufacturing, but moved into it. Originally started off in consumer products and distribution and hardware and things like that, and moved into manufacturing along the way. Um, and I've basically been manufacturing since the mid '90s. That's pretty much where the story kind of takes off.
And when we first talked about the seals that your company makes at Cambridge, I at first was like, I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't even know what kind of seals I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking everything that you had talked about, like on a transportation, on a truck, like those have to be sealed and they're all specifically designed a certain way. That way, if they break, they know that it's broken. So I think it'd be neat for you to talk about the seals and the types of products that you guys offer a little bit more so people really know, you know, how manufacturing ties to everything that we do, even down to security seals on things that we might not even think that need secured.
Okay, so tamper evident seals basically are designed to do exactly what what it says. This to seal something to show evidence of tampering. What that means is that when you're sending something from one place to another, you seal it before it leaves, and then it arrives at its destination. And if the seal is intact, then you know that the contents of whatever was sent are authentic and they haven't been tampered with. And there's an integrity to the products, to the quantity, to the quality, and so forth, to the safety and security of it as well.
And
Um,
you guys customize each type of seal based on your customer,
Right.
correct?
So in our business, basically, well, the first thing is that every seal is uniquely numbered. So we might make 500 million seals a year. Each one of them is different because each seal has a unique alphanumeric or barcode or QR code or something about it that makes it unique, which enables the person receiving it to be able to compare that seal to what it's supposed to be. So it prevents someone from cutting the seal, doing something nefarious, whether it's just taking something or tampering with it, and then putting on a new seal so that it looks like it hasn't been tampered with. But the tamper evident seal is designed specifically to prevent that. The beauty of the products that we manufacture primarily is that they're single use seals, which means that if they're reusable, they're defective. And so for us, that's a business basically about razor blades. We just make it's a continuous flow of supplies that just continue. Every time you use one, you're using it up. It can't be reused, that's the business that we're in. And they're used on the backs of trucks, on ballot boxes. They're used in evidence bags. They're used in cash bags for cash in transit. They're used on fire extinguishers. Every fire extinguisher by law, every time it's checked, has to have a seal that goes around it to let you know. So they're used basically in everything that you can imagine. Any industry that you can imagine probably has seals somewhere within the industry.
It's so interesting because we always talk about with manufacturing, you don't realize how many things are made from manufacturing. I wish that there was a term that we could call manufacturing that really made people realize that everything is made. And I mean, even the first time we talked, it blew my mind hearing about all the different seals and things that people do to make sure that their products are secure. Obviously, it makes sense when you're talking about it, but when you just think about it from a general perspective, you don't think that those things get manufactured. So, we're going to get more into um, Cambridge seals and what you guys do a little bit later, but why don't we dive into how you got into manufacturing and even a little bit before that, what were you initially interested in and how did you kind of change your mindset to manufacturing?
Um, all right, so I've always enjoyed making things, especially profits, but I like making things. I like making, and I'm not an engineer, but I've always been fascinated with automation. And from a very young age, we're talking about now when I was growing up in the early 70s, um, my mother used to take me with her when she'd go shopping to a local milk plant, and while it had kind of like a store attached to the facility, but you could see through these big glass windows that they had a fully automated. And this is early 70s, a fully automated stainless steel production floor where tanks produced, took the milk straight out of tankers and it would go into this processing. It would be homogenized and pasteurized and everything automated, and then cartons would come out flat. They'd be filled, they'd be blown open and filled and stacked and put into crates and would ship out the door. You didn't see a person on the floor. And it was this shiny, noisy, smooth running conveyors all over the place, Willy Wonka like factory. And for a 3-year old, a 4-year old, a 5-year old looking at this stuff, it was just fascinating. It was like the greatest thing you could go. I mean, this is you wanted to go shopping because you wanted to be able just to be sat down there and just to watch this for 10, 15, 20 minutes, a half hour at a time. It was just amazing to watch. Um, and I think that that's kind of where I really started really enjoying the idea of automation. Um, and, so ultimately, that's kind of what I come back to is kind of where I started, how I got into it. And detours along the way, obviously, and no one is born saying I want to grow up and be a seal manufacturer, but along the way, stuff happened, and I really have spent the better part of the last 30 years working in automated manufacturing.
It's actually funny that you bring up the food, seeing the milk and everything get made. So there is Krispy Kreme donuts. Have you heard of them? So I don't know who hasn't, but so my family goes down to North Carolina every year, and when I was young and we'd go into Krispy Kreme around the Myrtle Beach area, we would stop and we'd go inside and we would see the donuts get made, and they would. I mean, they had workers in there and stuff, so a little bit different than what you're talking about. But I don't even, when I was that young, I sat there and I had my face on the window. I'm like looking at the donuts and they're going up the conveyor down and things are flipping them over and it's going in the glaze, out of the glaze. And that's all manufacturing and automated systems. So it's super neat how even just that all backtracks. So um, I, I would like for you to kind of just pick back up of how did you start your company and when did you start it and kind of, I know you guys built Cambridge Security Seals kind of off of an automated platform. Why don't you start with how Cambridge Security Seals started and then kind of roll into that?
Okay, so I was running a manufacturing and distribution business that sold seals. It wasn't the product we manufactured. It was basically carried as a service to customers who asked us, "Oh, can you also supply us with seals?" So we did that alongside the products that were the primary focus of the business. And I watched over the span of a decade, really the beginning of the 2000s, there was a Chinese funded private equity firm that bought up all of the North American major seal manufacturers and began moving all of the production over to China. And uh, it was basically cutting us out of the mix. So I looked at this product line and I said, you know what? I know how to I can manufacture this product and I can make it better and cheaper and I can do it here in the U.S. And there are big advantages to that. There are delivery advantages in terms of lead times. There are quality advantages. There are printing advantages. There are service advantages. And I felt pretty comfortable that we could compete strongly with a Chinese or any other Asian manufacturer on this or any European manufacturer on this. And that's kind of where I dove in and started the business on that. And the basis for that feeling was my comfort with digitizing and with automation. The idea that we'd be able to use a fairly small amount of people and be able to scale up and still hit the numbers that we need to hit by using automation and by continually improving using automation as more and more technology became available and mainstreamed.
And I think that's a really important topic. One thing that you had mentioned to me before was that a perfect a perfect manufacturing shop is something that's completely automated. And you also talked about how when we talked the first time that AI and automation is not going to take away jobs. I think that's a big fear of people in the industry and even people that are thinking about going into automation. Oh, well, if I do that, then why do I need this person anymore? So, how did you kind of go through that thought process when it came to investing in automation? This episode of Manufacturing Muscle is sponsored by Ultratech Tool and Design, a family-owned stamping company since 1989. With pressing capabilities reaching up to 1,000 tons and having the ability to handle material from 1/100th to 3/8 of an inch, Ultratech Tool and Design can handle a variety of projects and applications. They are IATF 16949 certified and have an expert staff that strives to ensure a seamless customer experience. Ultratech Tool and Design emphasizes customer communication, quality stamping work, and also helping other companies with their stamping capacity. You can contact Ultratech Tool and Design today by reaching them at www.ultratechstamping.com.
Okay, so the first thing that, and I'm not breaking new ground here, but I'll relate to is that automation is highly leverageable and scalable. So if you're looking to grow a business, automation, manufacturing business, automation really enables you to grow it much faster. There are some high startup costs perhaps, but once those are amortized and paid for, the resulting production costs and efficiencies more than make up for it. And the key though is that automation is a strategy, and as a strategy, it has to be a disciplined strategy. I always kind of compare it to if you start with 100 and your goal is to get to 0, you just kind of keep cutting things in half. You're never going to get to 0, but you go to 50, then to 25, then to 12 and a half. You'll keep cutting it in half, but there'll always be half left. There's always more that you can automate, and as long as you stay focused on ROI and incremental improvements, there's always a way to further reduce costs or increase capacity or improve quality or just overall enhance profitability and in turn your competitive positioning. But the key to remember about manufacturing when you talk about AI and how it affects the industry is that manufacturing is still physical, right? There's machinery, products, conveyors, raw materials, lubricants, packaging, whatever it is. So AI is a tool that can assist with developing and engineering, and you can run a lights out factory like I've told you before, where there's not a person there, but someone still has to conceive, design, modify, test, maintain, program, and that's not necessarily straight line thinking because you have a lot of things that come into it, and we're quite a bit away from being able to turn that entire process and that type of creative and physical activity over to software and software run applications. So while AI is a great leveraging automation, it's not a replacement yet, or in the foreseeable future for personnel and human beings in the manufacturing activity. It will replace a lot of the things we don't like to do, but in terms of the overall management, maintenance, design, structuring of a manufacturing operation, AI is a tool. It's not a replacement.
And you had talked, just to kind of double down on that before, on the data collection with the automated systems, and that's what you really need your people for, and you're able to pull them away from kind of like those mundane tasks and put them in data collection and make that data really, really, really good and being able to keep up and make fast time adjustments. Did you kind of be able to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a great example of leveraging technology and leveraging automation to use your people in a better way. Okay, machines are great at doing things, not as great as making decisions. Certainly not necessarily decisions that aren't black and white. Okay, yes, you can use ladder logic and you can do a lot of things in terms of programming, decision making into equipment, but in a lot of cases, that's not enough. There are so many exceptions to the rule that you can't live with with the rule itself. We learned this really very much so just through COVID. When COVID hit, our workforce dropped by at one point over 50%. And as we've rebounded, today we find ourselves with 25% fewer employees than we had at our height before COVID, pre-COVID, but we're producing 25% more with the capacity to grow even more without adding necessarily anyone else. And our goal has kind of crystallized over this time to be able to leverage automation and continue to grow without having to add to the headcount in any major way unless we're going off in a totally new direction.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I would like to get your opinion on, we hear a lot. So, I mean, I work in marketing and I work on machine tool sales and things like that. And we hear a lot of people say that they're not ready to automate. They don't believe in automation. There's a lot of things around that. What's your advice to a shop that, wants to grow but isn't willing to accept, the true benefit and return on investment of automation?
Um, well, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to have a vision for what you're trying to achieve. You can't pursue automation haphazardly or randomly. Each element to the automation has to have a purpose and has to fit with the overall production. And within that, each decision has to be driven by ROI. If you think of it in terms of lean manufacturing, right? Automation is basically an extension of lean manufacturing. It's finding ways to reduce costs, speed things up, eliminate parts of the process that aren't value adding. And if you look at automation from purely from the standpoint of what is the value add here, and you keep in mind ROI, you keep in mind labor, you keep in mind efficiencies, you keep in mind service to the customer, speed, things like that, capacity, then you're able really to develop that vision. And once you understand the advantages of what automation can produce for you, you can make an educated decision whether or not you want to get into it.
That's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, on this podcast, we talk a lot. We're going to kind of shift gears here about getting the younger generation involved in manufacturing. And I think one way that manufacturing has started attracting, the younger generation and students is through automation. It's very fascinating to them. They see it a lot more. I mean, like you gave the example about the milk. I gave the example about the donut shop. And there's 10, 20 other things that you could think about that kids, see day to day. They don't get to see, an aerospace part made. It might be cool when they see it, but they don't get to see it made, but they get to see that automation day to day. And I think that's something that's really interesting to talk about and know that the younger generation is able to catch on to that thing quickly, especially from a robotics standpoint. Those teach pendants, they're like, it's like running an iPhone or, something like that. So is there anything, what are your thoughts about getting the younger generation involved in manufacturing? I know this is a topic that you're passionate about, so I kind of want to turn the mic over to you and just let you kind of lay your thoughts out there.
Um, I think that you have to get people interested in it, and how do you get people interested in it? Well, if they once they understand what it is, a certain number of people are going to naturally gravitate towards it. So the first thing is that manufacturing is about tangible things, right? We're creating new things, we're making things. There's a lot of high tech now involved, but what it comes down to is that you're developing a career or you're getting involved in something that's not just about services or moving money around or just shuffling paper. It's a people business, it's a tech business, it's an equipment business, and there's a tangible product to it. And there's just an immense amount of open-ended potential for motivated workers. It doesn't mean that you have to be an engineer or you have to work on a line or you have to in any part of the company. I mean, our sales team, they're salespeople, but they're manufacturing salespeople. So there's something different about selling that than selling an app or selling a financial product or something like that. It's very, very different. The same, and that pervades throughout the company. I mean, you come into our plants, okay, and the first thing is that people who come to our plant, instantly you feel the place shaking. You feel activity. You feel there's a drumbeat to it. And anytime that drum, we're a 24/7 operation, and anytime you walk in the building and you're not feeling that drumbeat, there's something wrong, right? Because that means that machines are running. And when we give tours, whether it's to students or to customers or to vendors, everyone just walks out on the floor and is like, wow, this is what I want to see. And they can't get enough. And they walk around and they look and they watch how things are made and they do all the different processes. And it's fascinating. And even to someone I've been to probably 500, 1,000, I couldn't even tell you how many manufacturing plants I've been to, in my life. Every time you go into one, whether it's, fully automated, partially automated, it's fascinating. And I think that's kind of like the key. The key is just get people to the point where they can just explore it and get interested in it. And it's not for everyone, but for a lot of people, they can find you'd be surprised at how many people, or you wouldn't be surprised, but a lot of people would be surprised at how many people find this stuff interesting and all of a sudden say, hey, you know what, I could see myself in this arena.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I didn't know I wanted to be in manufacturing, and when I saw it, it's almost hard to not be impressed. It's almost hard to not make a connection somehow. Like, oh, and then you start thinking about it more and more. But yeah, I mean, once we get students to get their eyes on what's going on. Like you said, not everybody will be interested because obviously that's not the case. But you could probably out of a group of 10 get 2 or 3 kids that leave there going, "Wow, that was really really cool. I'm really really interested in that." And one thing that you talked about as well is the different areas of manufacturing. We talk about that a lot. I feel like with a lot of these school programs and things like that. I love that they're pushing, manufacturing and the trades, but students also don't realize that they don't have to be a car salesman or, like you said, sell a finance product or insurance or technology. They can sell machine tools. They can sell parts that are made, like your seals. There is a sales component, there's a finance component, there's a management component, there's so many different areas within the manufacturing industry. You don't just have to be a machinist. Of course we need those, or an engineer or a programmer. Yes, we need those, but there's different areas, and I think you're right. We just got to find a way to get kids and more eyes on what we're doing. And what are a few ways, do you guys have student tours and things that you do, to engage the community?
Not nearly as much as we probably could and should. We go to schools, speak at schools. I'd like to do a little more maybe on the elementary school level because I think that's where kids really are much more curious and start getting interested in it as a concept rather than as a professional choice. But you start hitting high schools and colleges. I speak a lot at colleges and at business schools. And one of the things that draws me to the industry and drew me to the industry is there are some really, really smart people in the industry. And if you like being around smart people who are problem solvers, because manufacturing is basically all about problem solving. And if you enjoy problem solving and you enjoy being around smart people who collaborate to solve problems, then manufacturing is a great industry to be in. So I try and communicate that to people and students at the higher levels. But truly, elementary school students like, I mean, I was literally 3 4 5 years old when I got into this. I think that there is no age that's kind of too young to start exposing to this and to say, hey, this is something cool. Every single thing, right, you talk about school, every single thing that you interact with all day, from clothing to food and drink to phones and cars, everything's manufactured, right? No matter, everything physical around you was manufactured somewhere by something. And if you look at it today, I mean, who are two of the big heroes in the tech world? And you got Elon Musk, right? Steve Jobs. They were manufacturers. Okay,
Manufacturers.
that's what they do. Manufacturing. SpaceX is a manufacturing company, right? Tesla, manufacturing company. Okay, Apple, manufacturing company. That's what these things are. And you know, when I was growing up, it was Sony, and it was it was different. And the car, but it's the same thing. It's the greatest things out there are the cool things that we love, gadgets and technology. These are all manufactured products, and you just have to kind of get people to see it from that perspective. Somewhere, someone has to design it, make it, create it, build it. And that's how we try and get people excited about it. And I think that we can certainly do more of it and a better job of it, but so can everyone else. And I think that the more of it that's done, the closer we'll come to kind of bridging that gap where we have enough people to fill the roles that we're looking to fill.
I just got like a burst of energy for your last like 30 seconds. I got the chills. I'm excited about manufacturing, listening to you get excited about manufacturing. And I think you're totally right. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day. I can't remember which one it was. I wish I could give them credit. But they were talking about exposing kindergarteners and first grade, second grade, elementary school age kids to the manufacturing world. And someone was like, yeah, but they don't need to pick a career or whatever in elementary school. And the guy was said, it's not picking a career. You're trying to explore concepts and activities that kids are interested in. We're not telling them to say they're going to be a lawyer at 5 years old. We're just saying, hey, isn't it cool that you can design this? Isn't it cool that you can make that? Isn't it cool how this goes from here to here to here to here? And they get interested in the concept, not necessarily telling them to pick a career. And that goes for like making things, like kids that like to build Legos and stuff. They obviously like to build stuff, so that's a concept that they're interested in that hopefully that they can carry through and realize that building my little Lego machine and building that, and I really like doing that, is something that I could do in CAD CAM software and kind of start to make those connections. So that's really great that you guys go into schools and you talk to students and you get them excited, because every time someone like yourself is there, and you're bound to affect one person, and one person snowball effect turns into two, three, four. So that's really awesome. And one thing that you touched on maybe about 5 minutes ago or so was motivated employees. Um, Students that are out there, because we do get a young demographic watching these manufacturing muscle podcasts. What are things that you look for in the quality of somebody that's kind of telling that they're going to be a motivated employee, so we can kind of give everyone listening, oh, these are maybe some things that I need to focus on?
All right. Well, the basics are kind of showing up on time, and being friendly and communicative. I mean, you're working. I said before, manufacturing is a people industry. It's a people. You have to kind of be able to work within a team and get along with people. So that's kind of like the first thing that anyone's looking for. Um, but you want to see the eagerness, the willingness and ability to learn, to adapt. Um, you want to see people who can be responsible, but also can take accountability. Which aren't the same. That's not the same thing. And then you're looking for problem solving and good decision making. And those are. It's trite to say that, oh, those are just traits that we list on a sheet of paper. Here are the requirements. But no, it's more than that. It's really real. As you get out there, there are very few things. Look, manufacturing is all about eliminating variation, right? We want to make 100 pieces. We want them all to be identical. Okay, the goal of every manufacturing process is eliminate the variation, unless you're making customized product for where each one's different. But for most manufacturing, it's eliminating variation. Well, even the best automation and the best robotics and everything in the world still has, there's margin for error, there's margin for variation. And you want people who understand that, and you want people who, whether, no matter what position they're in, understand that, hey, I'm constantly looking for ways to improve the processes that we have going on here. And whether that's in manufacturing, whether that's in accounting, whether that's in sales, wherever you are in a company, see something, fix it. See something, come up with an idea. Always look to improve. And I think that you can't do automation, you can't do manufacturing, and you can't do any of these things without continuous improvement. Because the goal of every manufacturing company is continuous improvement. Even if they don't say so, that's their goal. So the companies that establish continuous improvement programs, I think, really understand that, we're never reaching that perfection. But boy, every time we improve something, we get a little closer.
I think you need to start a podcast on getting people motivated to create these types of plans and implement these things and talk about this, because you can hear it in your voice. You're super passionate about it, and it's really interesting to kind of pick your brain and hear about all these things, because sometimes we don't get to talk to higher level executives and listen to their perspective on employment and on automation and how things are made and how they got involved and how they want other people to get involved. So it's definitely a unique perspective. So I really appreciate you sharing all this information, and definitely always starts with showing up. And I think more and more and more as we continue to push that, and this generation grows to know that they got to work hard and be motivated and be excited about what they're doing, we're going to hopefully see that shift. What do you think manufacturing can do from a larger scale perspective to get more kids involved?
Um, well, I think when I was growing up, there were shows on TV, how this is made, how this gets made, and things like that. And I think that kids, younger kids in general, will always be fascinated by how whatever they're holding, how this is made, how this is made. They'll always be fascinated by these kind of things. And I think that um, we could do a better job, probably as a society, in kind of promoting that type of interest, and letting people, understand these things. Um, I think it depends. I think schools traditionally kind of steer people down very certain paths. Where You go to elementary school, get into high school. High school, take these courses so you can get into college. In college, take these courses so you can follow this career, become an accountant, become, go into finance, but do this, do that. And manufacturing doesn't have those kind of career tracks in the sense of from an education standpoint. At least we don't have it currently. You have some trade schools, fine, but really manufacturing is applicable for the kid who's struggling and is just enjoying himself in shop, but it's also great for the kid who's the math whiz and who's the programming whiz. It really kind of can cover anyone in the entire spectrum. You just have to find ways to expose people to it. And um, if I knew the answer to how we could do that, I'd be out doing it. But
You'd be out doing it. Well,
I don't know.
I think your point about manufacturing doesn't have a direct career path. Kids go out, they go to college, they pick a major based on what they want to go in, but there's no manufacturing major. I mean, obviously there's majors that are related back. You can go into marketing, you can get a business degree, get sales, you can go into engineering, things like that. But no one's like, oh yeah, go here to do manufacturing. So I think that's something that that is kind of just tapping the ice on the potential that could be had there in terms of more manufacturing schooling paths would be pretty interesting. But you shared so much really great information, and we're about to wrap this up. Before I ask my max out questions, is there anything else that you want to close with?
Um, no, I think that there's a really, really bright future for manufacturing in North America and in the U.S. especially. I think more and more companies, and more industries are realizing the importance of manufacturing domestically, and that's just going to open up more and more opportunities for really for long careers, for careers that are dynamic, that are changing. You know, Manufacturing is one industry, maybe more than any other industry, where the ability to move up within the industry and to advance within the industry, it's right there in front of you. And there's no one who's hired at an entry level that doesn't have the ability to move up quickly as they become more and more proficient. And every manufacturing company is looking for those people left and right. So, I'm very optimistic about manufacturing as an industry, and I think that there'll be a waterfall effect that will, some way, shape, or form, make its way down to the younger people who will start discovering that.
You nailed it. You nailed it. I say it all the time. Manufacturing is one of the only industries designed for advancement from an employee perspective.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So, Alicia, why don't you? We're gonna close out with two questions here. I call them my max out questions. I think I might have sent you three, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask two instead. So, the first one is going to be. I know you love manufacturing. I know you love automation. If there is something else that you could have done, what is it, and why did you not do it?
Easy question. Professional baseball player. I wanted to pitch or play shortstop for the Mets. And then when that didn't happen, I wanted to be the general manager of the team. And I actually landed myself an interview for the GM position of the Mets about 20 years ago when the position was open. It's a great story for another time. Um, but that would have been an industry and something that I would have really loved to have gotten involved in. But, you know,
Oh my gosh, it is interesting. Yeah, we will have to talk about that another time. And then the last question, and this is kind of a new question. I haven't asked anybody this, but I've been doing a lot of talks at high schools lately, and a lot of kids have been asking me this. And I always hear that my parents can't shut work off. How do you just leave work at home and have that balance? Can you do it, and how do you do it?
so I will start off by saying I'm very often guilty of living work all the time. I'm an entrepreneur. I've always run my own companies, had my own investments, things like that. So there is no shut off button. It's a 24/7 kind of thing. But I'm also, and I developed this better over time, I've become very good at compartmentalizing things. And what I mean by that is to be able to focus on something and block out everything else. And I think that's what you're talking about when you talk about shutting off. So I'm very
Yeah.
involved in my community, and on weekends, I'm able to shut things off pretty decently. But I also find that certain interests, like sports, take my mind off business. I mean, um, when I finished college, I went out and got season tickets for the Mets, Jets, Knicks, and Rangers. And if you basically wanted to do something with me, whether it was dating or just hanging out, it was going to Shea Stadium, Giant Stadium, or Madison Square Garden. That's what I was doing probably 200 nights a year, something like that. I mean, that's what it was. I don't do that now. I don't, but I still really enjoy either going or watching those events, and to me, that's really just a fantastic way to block things off.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. I think, talking about involving yourselves in things and compartmentalizing, because you're right, this business never shuts off. And for yourself, you run a 24/7 operation, you're an entrepreneur. I'm sure your phone's always blowing up, but you find ways to enjoy yourself outside of work and be able to focus on one thing at a time. And I love that you're involved in sports and like sports. I'm that way too. But yeah, it's definitely hard. I mean, I think in any job, it's hard to completely shut off because your business is right here. We all have iPhones. You get an email, you get a call. It's so accessible and it's hard to ignore. And I mean, I definitely don't. So it's nice hearing the compartmentalize, and I'm sure somebody will take something away from that. But thank you so much for being on with us and sharing all your insight.
It's my pleasure, and I wish that there were 100 of you and 10 of you who wanted to come work at CSS because we sure could use you guys.
Well, thank you. Well, if anybody listening is looking, for a position, maybe they can reach out and I can get them in contact with you, and hopefully
Absolutely, or just cambridgeseals.com.
there you go. We'll put that in the link, and if there's any other information you'd like me to provide in the description, we'll be happy to do that. But thank you so much for being on. Everybody listening, thank you. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to follow along Cambridge Seals and Elisha Tropper's continuous manufacturing journey. Thanks for watching.